punch drunk immersive theatre, and they're well known to be the best at it. Absolutely the best. Sleep No More is just an iconic show, and they now have a new show post-COVID in London again with a new permanent venue, and it's called The Burnt City, and it's based on the Trojan War. Loosely. The myths. It's not as story heavy as Sleep No More, but I had the best night of my life. And unlike so many people, I was super lucky. I got a private scene. And not one private scene, but 2 private scenes. Yeah, I'm still like over the moon. The private scenes are when the actors take you aside and you have a moment. And I got 2 of them, which is very, very lucky. Now I'm going to talk very loosely about the show, somewhat in depth about the private scenes, because not many people get those. But really my biggest thing to you is go watch it. It's on till I think the end of the year. Get tickets. Get in as early as you can, because the show loops, right? Like, I think there's 3 main loops through the night. And you just are meant to piece it together by moving through this space. You know, you're given a mask, you're sent off, split up from your friends. Do not stay with your friends. There were 4 of us, we all just split up and we went off our merry way, and it was wonderful. So as we enter the space, there's this first key set piece scene, and it's a sacrifice going on, and everyone is immediately running to this magnificent set piece. But on the balcony up high, there's someone in grief. There's someone mourning what's about to happen. And I just had to go there. So I'm immediately off the main path, up there, and I see her grief, and I see her witnessing the scene. Now I'm seeing the scene slightly as well, but I'm seeing it through her eyes. And then shortly after there's this intense lovemaking scene, this grotesque meal, resurrection, like trying to resurrect like the viscera of the meal in their grief and their trauma. And the theme has been set for the evening 100%, both in that this grief and this personal loss was so fascinating to me, but also I was interested in the people watching the set pieces. And that led me to the character that would define my night. I wandered around a bit, found the 2 spaces, and in between the 2 spaces there's a border guard, this red-headed border guard. And I see her drinking from the bottle in remorse, just sort of leaning up against the wall going, and she is tragic. And she is so obviously gay. And I'm like, I need to know more. I need to know more now. So I just follow her, and I find out that she's facilitating and witnessing all these things. And I'm obsessed with her story. Now, the writer and the designer in me immediately knows that she is what is sometimes called a glue character or a facilitator, in that she is getting props to scenes, she's helping set up scenes, she has a support role in many of the key set pieces, but she's also there resetting scenes. Now, that sounds really mechanical, but like, for example, one of the ways she resets a scene is when she is just really broken up, and this is when I first came across her, about her love, I assume, dying. She's shining a torch, because this is the other thing. She's almost never in the spotlight. She's almost always on the edge of the spotlight, or holding this bright torch and illuminating things for you to look at. But I was looking at her. I wanted to witness her grief as the witness. And so she's picking up these bits and pieces, which is important for her story, but mechanically is also resetting the loop, so when the next scene comes around, that all works. So I know, like from dissecting the show, I shouldn't expect too much from this character because she's a background character. But God, this actress, she was giving it her all. Like, she filled this character with so much grief and so much agony and torment. I wanted to find out her story. And like, there's this key prop, this like sparkly mask thing that I think only I saw like 2 people wear in the show, but she wears it briefly. She wears it briefly when this trickster comes out and shoves it on her. Then she rejects it, and she briefly touches all the main plot lines. And she's there at some of the like most poignant moments, like people eyes ripped out, people naked hanging from the ceiling bleeding. She's there facilitating it, giant bears and all kinds of ridiculously crazy stuff. And I'm following her around, and at one point she just breaks down. She's literally just like on the floor, like crying, and she like reaches up her hand to me, and I take it. And in taking it, I have consented to this private scene. And she just immediately hugs me, like really tight, like, I mean like, whoa, tight. I'm not allowed to talk. I don't want to, I want to give the actor space. I don't want to constrain the actor, but I'm like, she's like, and I'm swept up. She takes my hand and she rushes me off through backstages and between cast members and scenes, and we're just going. I have eyes for no one but her. And she takes us to a little closet. She unlocks the closet. We get in, and it's tiny. I mean, it's like from here to that wall, tiny. We can barely fit. It's crammed with stuff. Because, I mean, every set, this is 1,000 square feet, tons of little rooms. You could spend your entire night just looking at the set pieces, like the set design and everything, and not seeing the big set pieces. And you'd be like, oh my God, there's so much storytelling here. And so much of it is crammed in little corners where actors will never go. So you can find so much story that way. But yeah, this room is only accessible to, I'm assuming, this private scene. And she sits me down. And remember, the reason I was attracted to her initially and her story is her grief and her alcoholism. And she's just down in her sorrows in the bottle. And what's one of the first things she does to me after, like, opening up to me? She hands me a shot of vodka and a shot for herself. And immediately I'm like, I don't want to derail the scene, but I just really don't want her to drink, because that was kind of what started my whole fascination. And again, like, if you're not a drinker and you were pulled into the scene and you turn down the vodka, you know, I'm sure the scene would continue. But it just felt right, and I just shot it back. And I was also low-key expecting water, because, you know, it's pretty rare to indulge alcohol on stage. But nope, there was vodka. And I'm now, like, really thrown off my game. Oh, I didn't say the most emotional part. When I entered this private space with her, this whole time I'm wearing a mask. She asks permission to take off my mask. She pulls it off. And I'm not a shy person, but this mask was the only thing keeping me separate from her grief. And now I'm in it. Like, when I'm taking this shot, I'm exposed to all of this. And then she puts my hand on the tarpaulin and there's grass under there. AstroTurf, but grass. And she's telling me the story about how the gods created the earth and how it was perfect and whole, and how mankind and civilization came along and destroyed and dirtied it. And she moves my hand from the grass to this black sand, and I'm gripping it like it hurts. I mean, it actually hurts, but the pain's kind of welcome, because I'm like trying to distract myself from all the emotional pain in the scene. She tells me we're strong. We can, like, get through this. And I'm like, I was here for your grief, not mine. But damn, I'm now grieving. And she lets the sand out of my hand and she wipes it clean, resetting me. Puts my mask back on, ushers me out, unlocks and locks behind. That was my first private scene. And as powerful as the rest of the night was, the private scene was like... Now, I still didn't know who her lover was. So when I saw her again later, I followed it a little bit and I figured out, okay, that's who her lover is. And pieces started falling in together. And I'm like, okay, I know this stuff loops. I need to find more story and piece it together more. I left her behind. And I also just want to give the actor some space. I mean, they'd given me a private scene. I'd clearly seen a loop. Didn't want to distract. Hopefully someone else got a private scene. You know, maybe she does want a loop. Who knows? That would be good. Right? I mean, there's a lot of people at the show, and there's not many of those private scenes. They're quite rare, so I was very lucky to get one. So I'm going through the show, and again, you should go see it. But if you go with 5 of your friends, and you end up in the bar afterwards, you are all going to have separate stories. This is why you need to split up, and why you need to explore, because weaving those stories in together at the end is the fun part. So anyway, I'm following like crazy parkour monkeys and desperate desires to get out of hell, and, you know, suitcases, and, you know, chasing down little programming manuals and back corners and greenhouses and alchemists and healers. There was another character I followed. Again, another minor character whose primary purpose was healing. But what actually entailed by healing is, of course, a lot of these characters get covered in blood or other injuries, and she washes them away. Now, this serves a story purpose, but this also serves like a loop purpose, a set purpose, you know, a design of show purpose, in that she resets those characters for another loop, which fascinated me. But this particular character ran around a lot, and at one point, actually, a black, like one of the staff, because she nipped into a thing and locked behind. I was trying to follow her, and then the staff member was like, "No, that's a no-go area." But yeah, so I'm exploring, I'm finding stories, I'm going to the bar, I'm getting a drink. And the bar, by the way, there's still stories happening in there. You could hang out in the bar and you could see stories. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend exploring the space, finding all the side stories, getting lost. Getting lost was all the fun. But anyway, it comes to a climax, a crescendo. Every character's get together in this core space. And I don't want to spoil it, but a key point for my story is 99% of the cast at this point is nude. I mean, they've got like nude skin pants on, but they're otherwise nude, running around doing this whole thing. This tragic finale. It's intense. Strobe lights, darkness, audio. It's just... Anyway, I'm right on the edge of the circle, but a bit towards the thing, and it goes dark. And I'm in the dark, and I'm emotionally worn out. It's been like 3 hours of intense theatre. And we've just seen the finale, right? In the darkness, one of the main characters, the bearded character who's like key to the first set piece. Anyway, I don't want to say names because we all have our guesses, but grabs me in the dark and runs with me. And now one of the rules is you're not meant to run, right? But, you know, he has my hand and he's rushing me along. And I'm not like in a full sprint or whatever, but I'm like in the dark with this naked man, this naked bearded man. And we're pushing open doors, and again, we're getting away from people, and we come into this little private space with fairy lights, beautiful fairy lights. And he comes close, and in my ear, he whispers a story about this dead girl, this tragic tale meant only for me, and how her obsession with firelights and how the fairy lights remind him of her. And again, I've had my mask removed. I'm exposed. And this sweaty guy has me alone in this space, telling me this intimate moment of grief. yeah, that hit hard. That hit really hard. And yeah, so I think the worst thing or best thing is he ended all of that. Now, this guy has been performing for 3 hours straight. He's been giving his all in this really human moment of just going, thank you for coming. And then he pushes me out and doesn't give back my mask. And so I am crying, shell-shocked, engrieved, pushed into the flow of humanity exiting the show. Yes, they've seen the finale, but a lot of these people are still in groups. They're sheltered. They haven't exposed themselves to the rawness of the show, and they're smiling and they're happy and they're getting into the bar. And I bump into my friend and she's like, are you okay? And I wasn't. But damn, was it a good show. We got drinks after. We spoke about the storylines. They were all mad jealous. I got 2 private scenes. I am so over the moon about that. I could go back, because I feel like if you watch the show multiple times, you're always going to find new stuff. But I also don't think I will, because that experience tops it for me. But yeah, Burn City. Get tickets. Get as early an entry as you can. The theatre space is pretty hot, so dress for like the beach. Comfortable shoes, because you maybe have to run around after actors and storylines to keep up. I mean, you don't actually run. They strongly discourage running. It's against the rules. But you will move very, very fast through doors and darkness just to see the end of that storyline. And even then, you might miss it, because imperfect information, not seeing the whole picture, that's what makes that show so great. And maybe if you're really lucky, you'll get pulled into a private moment. Thank you so much, Punch Drunk, for a fantastic night. We all know that you guys are like the top of immersive theatre, and I was expecting a good night, but damn. Yeah, over the moon, and I am emotionally and physically hungover today. So this is also why I'm recording it in VR, because I look like a wreck. Anyway, take care, and I hope you get tickets soon, because it really deserves the biggest audience it can get. Bye-bye.